Hello and welcome to Talk to Jazeera, and our guest today is one of the best known figures on the international stage. Hamid Karzai has been the president of Afghanistan now for almost 7 years, leading that troubled country since the fall of the Taliban government. But in recent years, the Taliban seem to be back, turning parts of southern and eastern Afghanistan into a battlefield and launching their most audacious attack in the last month in the center of Kabul, an attack on the only five-star hotel in Afghanistan, an attack not far away from the presidential palace. President Karzai, I'll ask you about the security situation in a moment, but if I could start by asking you about life for ordinary Afghans. Your average Afghan has a life expectancy of 43 years, I think, according to the latest UN figures, down from 44 years. We have very high infant mortality rates. 25% of children under 5 die. Afghanistan remains, by UN figures, the poorest country in Asia. The country you lead, the life for the ordinary people seems a desperately awful life.
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Afghanistan is among the poorest countries of the world. Afghanistan was among the worst affected countries in the world 6 years ago. Thank God, life has improved a lot for the Afghan people for the past 7 years because of the will of the Afghan people, also because of the help of the international community. From the United States to Europe to the Islamic world, to Japan, to India, to China, to the neighbors, all have helped. And because of that help, life in Afghanistan has improved considerably. For example,
you say it's improved, but just look at the last month, 900 people dying from the cold in the last month. I mean, this isn't a country that seems to be able to look after its own people.
Well, cold is a different issue. I'm speaking of the improvement in life, not of the weather conditions. Afghanistan was among the countries in the world 6 years ago that had the highest child mortality rate. Afghanistan today saves 25% of its children from the age of infancy to 5. That is 85,000 children a year. Afghanistan can now provide from 9% of the population 6 years ago to over 85% of the population with some form of health service. Our node network has been completed. We have millions of children going to school. So the country as a whole, the economy is better, the livelihood is better, has improved a lot in terms of social upliftment, economic development. Yes, we still have a problem with terrorism and with security.
Tell me about that security problem. How worried are you about the situation right now?
Well, I'm not worried in the sense that it is not a threat to the path we have taken towards a better Afghanistan, towards a democratic Afghanistan, towards a more prosperous Afghanistan, towards an Afghanistan that should eventually stand on its own feet. But it is hurting us. It causes death to our people. It prevents in parts of the country our children from going to school. They kill our ulama, our community leaders. They cause hurt to our society. In that sense, we are very unhappy, and in that sense, we are trying very hard, together with the rest of the world, to get rid of this menacing force.
And the Taliban were able to strike right in the center of Kabul last month, in the Serena Hotel. You probably heard what happened in your palace. It was so close. I mean, they're striking in the heart of your capital city.
It is not the power that they have, that they were able to strike at the heart of Kabul city at the Serena Hotel, which was a very unfortunate incident, by the way. It was more our relaxed attitude that caused that.
So you have to change things.
Absolutely. We have to be more vigilant. Imagine, we had 2 foreign ministers visiting that day in that hotel. We had a Chinese mine experts delegation staying in that hotel, and other guests. And around the hotel, it was life as usual. We did not have a police presence there to check vehicles. We did not have our intelligence presence the way we should have had. So That day's event is not because of the ability of terrorists to strike where they choose.
Well, who's to blame? Ultimately, you're in charge.
But because we were not vigilant enough, which we should have been, which we learned later. Therefore, it is not their strength. It is our feeling of normalcy in Kabul that caused that.
But who's to blame? I mean, for not having that vigilance. You ultimately in charge, aren't you?
Of course, I take the blame for that. Of course, the Afghan government takes the blame on that. But I'm giving you another sense that it is not their ability to strike as a force, as a power to them, but our feeling that the country is secure and this part is all right, and that we can go about life the way most countries do, and that is what we have to change.
President Karzai, you talk about normal life returning, and you say parts of the country are secure, but isn't
the greater part of the country is secure?
A greater part of the country is secure, but isn't the reality this? If today I was to get in a car in Kabul, your capital city, and was to try and drive to your home city, the second city of Afghanistan, Kandahar, that would be a deeply unwise thing for me to do, wouldn't it? I mean, I might get shot, I might get kidnapped or killed. Look back at the South Koreans last summer. Now, isn't that a pretty appalling indictment of the security situation in the country that you've run for the last 7 years, that you can't drive between the capital city and the second city of Afghanistan?
Well, tell you what. 6 years ago, it would take you 24 hours or more to travel the road from Kabul to Kandahar. Today, it takes you 4.5 hours. That's the first difference. From 24 hours to 4.5 hours. You can travel on that road.
I can travel on that road?
You can travel on that road.
Safely?
You can travel on that road safely. You take some precautionary measures and you travel on that road safely. Now, we know parts of the country is insecure. We know part of the country has Taliban activity. It's mostly in southern Afghanistan and in areas bordering with Pakistan. We know there is an inability in the Afghan government to deliver security to parts of the country because of the weakness of the Afghan institutions. And that is why the international community is there. The reason that the rest of the world is in Afghanistan because there is something that we lack ourselves. And that is why we are trying hard, both the international community and Afghanistan, to build Afghanistan after years and years and years of destruction. So don't expect us suddenly to be a paradise of peace. No country is, unfortunately, nowadays a paradise of peace. But don't expect us especially to be a paradise of peace. Give us time and give us help and cooperation from the neighbors so that eventually we can be that.
And is the international community, particularly in a military sense, giving you the help that you need at the moment?
It is giving us sufficient help in fighting terrorism together. It's giving us sufficient help in building our institutions, and we are grateful for that. But is there a need for more help? Yes. Is there a need for an improvement in the way we fight extremism and terrorism? Yes. So if both of those can come to Afghanistan in an added manner, we will be happier.
We constantly hear of NATO countries saying they might pull out their troops, NATO countries debating where to put their troops, whether to deploy them in the volatile areas in the south and in the east. Are you worried that the NATO countries, and America for that matter, have the long-term commitment needed to Afghanistan? Or are you concerned that they might abandon your country? You said that your country was abandoned after the end of the Cold War. Are you worried that will happen again?
I don't think the United States will abandon Afghanistan again. I think they have learned their lesson, unfortunately, in a tragic way on September 11. I think they recognize that bringing stability and a government able to deliver to the Afghan people eventually is a top priority, both for stability in Afghanistan and for the fight against terrorism. So the United States will not leave us. And there's bipartisan support of Afghanistan, for which we're very, very happy there. Now, NATO will stay in Afghanistan, But NATO will have their problem of caveats, countries determining their own mode of operations and the place that they want to choose. That is something that NATO has to address itself. The overall satisfaction with NATO is there in Afghanistan, and we are grateful that they are there, and we believe they will stay.